Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Crisis Corner. I have actually titled this one Simulating Society simply because we are going to be looking at the idea that what if some external force is trying to guide us, is trying to dictate the rules of engagement for our reality? What if they're trying to capstone our progress, redirect our renaissance? With that being said, let's jump right into it. So before I actually get into some of the heavier things of this actual episode, I think that I need to build a basis for the claims that I'm about to make. Right there, Swedes must integrate with migrants. And this is because we're experiencing things such as the multicultural agenda, or the clash of civilizations, the culture clash, however you would want to look at it. There are a number of things that I've seen, and hopefully I can get throughout this actual episode, that illustrate that whenever we're being injected with these migrants, whenever we're on the opposite end of this destabilization campaign, basically what we're seeing to a larger scale is getting everybody on the same page, breaking down nationalism, breaking down borders, breaking down a number of things. And the idea behind breaking down borders isn't simply a physical thing. It's not only restricted to the country, you see. And this is why whenever we have people like Pope Francis coming out saying integrate, don't repatriate, and that kindness, that hospitality to refugees is our greatest security against terrorism. Whenever he's saying these types of things, he's trying to change your mindset. He's trying to change your viewpoint on what's really going on how we view this situation. This is a spiritual leader, right? Or so we think. This is a spiritual leader telling us to do political things. You see, this is what I mean by breaking down the borders. Not only is it a physical thing, but they are also now changing how we view spiritual matters as well as the common man entirely. Okay, this is all part of a larger agenda. This is all part of a larger game, a larger aspect of things, you see. Whenever they're, like I said before, when they're injecting us with these migrants, with these people, with these immigrants, these refugees, what they're basically doing is causing a global issue which requires global governance, which requires people from basically all parts of the world to do their part to handle this issue, right? As humanitarian as that does sound, as I keep trying to illustrate when it comes to people like Pope Francis, Bill Gates, George Soros, etc., this is faux compassion. Okay, all this really is them trying to use these types of things as a scapegoat for this larger agenda. And whenever we're talking about the larger agenda, basically what I'm trying to say is global governance, the one world government, the one world order, the new world order. This is why we have so many different things like this occurring across the board in different countries. Is because, as I said before, this is not a local issue. This is an international issue in which they will try to inject global government. This is why we have Obama saying that we need to give up our international status.
But we have to put our money where our mouths are. And we can only realize the promise of this institution's founding to replace the ravages of war with cooperation if powerful nations, like my own, accept constraints. Sometimes I'm criticized in my own country for professing a belief in international norms and multilateral institutions, but I am convinced that in the long run, giving up some freedom of action, not giving up our ability to protect ourselves or pursue our core interests, but binding ourselves to international rules over the long term enhances our security.
I'm not entirely sure what Obama does think, but I do have my own theories. I won't be going down that. However, what I will be looking at is the idea that Hillary Clinton supports this new urban agenda. And what this new urban agenda is, Habitat 3. Basically, what I would consider this, or what I would be able to describe this to you guys as, is politically correct population control. You know, right there, the new urban plan aims to reduce water power use by half. the fact that they're trying to have compact cities, the fact that they want to migrate 200 million different farmers into the city. Okay, this is what I constantly keep talking about when I say for the Building the Matrix series, that they want to have us in these hubs, that they want to have us in these microgrids, these sustainable cities, these technocracies where they can monitor everything, you see. And that is an entire discussion on its own. I advise you guys to go check out some of those videos that I have on this subject. I'll actually put it in the description below. What I'm trying to talk about when we look at Habitat 3 for humanity, this is what happens whenever we have swaths of people, swaths of individuals who basically have no place to go, who are not repatriated, who are not integrated into society, and for people who actually are integrated into society. This is an all-encompassing agenda, which basically turns our cities into districts, which basically turns us into numbers for this politically correct agenda. I'm not really necessarily sure how to explain it other than that. First, it is recognized that no single UN agency can reasonably be given responsibility to implement such an all-encompassing agenda for the future of our cities. All right, and think about that. What they're trying to say is that no one agency in the UN can tell people how to implement this. This has to be a collective decision. Everyone involved can then start making these types of decisions and then start talking about what's best for the city. You see, the UN Habitat hoped to have this role, but its motivation was to gain both influence and financial resources. So let that simmer for a second. Second, cooperation from subnational, city, and local governments is a prerequisite for successful implementation. From the very start of the negotiations, they have felt excluded from what is principally an agreement between nation states. Subnational government wants more say on the implementation of the new urban agenda. And a perfect example of this, guys, if you really want an example of this kind of thing that's going on and how intricately it's weaved into society, is how, like, Governor Jerry Brown is citing new things for climate change, wanting a autonomous highway. All the different types of things that are going on in California that seem like it's in accordance with Agenda 2030 kind of are, because that's what this is. The larger agenda that I'm trying to illustrate to you guys is them trying to figure out what to do with the population. They're expecting all kinds of chaos, but they want that much control over precise things that you're doing. You see, like getting control of the resources. Think about that. Third, civil society is fully engaged with the formation of the agenda and successfully pushed for the principle of the, quote, right of the city or right to the city to be included. What they're basically trying to say is certain cities will have certain rights, certain things that they can do. Certain districts, certain areas will be able to produce and consume. There's all kinds of different things that you have to look at, but what I'm basically trying to tell you guys is that Habitat 3 is, as I said before, politically correct population control. They're trying to figure out, with Agenda 2030, with larger agendas, how to get control of our resources, how to have influence over society, what to do to civil society, and what is required of the individuals who live there. You see, in Hillary Clinton, she supports this. So whenever you look at it, obviously she supports it. She's an establishment candidate. She's the one who's basically greasing the wheels of the beast machine and trying to push this forward. Okay, this is Agenda 2030 in a larger scale, guys. This is, or actually not really in a larger scale, in a more precise scale. This is what they're trying to do whenever they have these kinds of congregations, whenever they have these kinds of meetings. So much so that I actually have something that kind of illustrates this precisely, that illustrates this perfectly. And what I'm basically trying to get across to you guys is the fact that we're seeing intergovernmental agencies as well as multinational governments and international laws being erected silently while we're doing away with the Constitution, while we're doing away with the Bill of Rights, while we're doing away with a number of things. This is global governance. This is the New World Order erecting itself. This is it. You see, this is what I mean by them externalizing the hierarchy. Obviously, they did these things way before they actually publicly came out and started doing and declaring them. But the point is now they're coming out publicly and saying that we need this. City mayors create a global parliament. More than 60 mayors from around the world have joined forces to create an alliance dubbed a global parliament to demand a more powerful role in the management of city growth and urbanization. Speaking on the eve of the United Nations Habitat 3 conference in Kyoto, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, Kyoto, Ecuador on Sunday, the mayors outlined a united vision in which local government would lead the global response to rising urbanization. They said collaboration rather than competition would help them address the most urgent challenges for the world's cities, from affordable housing and transport to climate change, migration, and refugees. So I hope this article basically illustrates to you guys how now our cities are going to be like districts. I hate to use a Hunger Game reference, where we have certain areas that are responsible for certain types of resources, but that's where we're at these days. Like I said before, politically correct population control. What these people are doing whenever they're erecting these global parliaments for mayors is they're creating just that, international intergovernmental institutions. What they're doing is they're trying to limit what rights we already do have by creating international laws that we have to abide by because of the backdoor treaties, the agendas, and the other things that we have signed on to, right? So all of these things seem pretty advantageous for society, right? They seem pretty heroic to some degree, these people who want to come together and figure out what to do for city growth and urbanization, how they want to help refugees and how they want to help migrants, and even discuss things such as climate change. You see, as I said before, this is all bigger or more finite, more definable aspects, more characteristics of Agenda 2030, them trying to erect the New World Order. So when we're talking about them trying to figure out what to do with these refugees, this is them saying, globally, how do we handle this? What do we implement? How do we get our hands around the situation? This is them bouncing off ideas and creating a new government, doing away with our national sovereignty and creating something else entirely, you see. And the only thing that they can do outside of this, or what they can do while discovering or discussing this type of information, is doing just that, gathering more data, gathering more information, gathering the required responses, basically, the required information to input into a larger system to deal with the population. So what did I basically just say? What I'm trying to illustrate to you guys is that when they're sending 100,000 refugees here, and they're sending 200,000 refugees here, and they're sending 80,000 refugees here, this is an organized plan. This is a formula. This is a scientific takeover. This is something where they're specifically rationing individuals as if it was some kind of machine dictating where people should go to do certain types of things. All right. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that we have computers running everything. We have artificial intelligence telling us personality traits, characteristics, predictive algorithms, all kinds of different things like that. So whenever it comes to this, the New World Order, how they're going to be running things, how they're going to be distributing goods, the haves and the have-nots, how they're going to be handling people, will all be handled by machines, because people cannot simply do all of these equations. And in their mindset, these machines work a lot faster, and they're more efficient, and they're more precise. And that's exactly where they would like to go. That's why at the start of this, I tried to illustrate a foundation showing that, they're sending refugees to Europe, they're sending refugees to France, they're sending refugees to America, even in Japan. They're sending all these different non-compatible countries or individuals to countries that they're not compatible with. This is all to get an experiment, to get a rise out of us, to get some kind of result, to get something where they can gauge the next response, right? What I'm basically trying to tell you guys is that they're messing with us. They're destabilizing us. They're using these types of individuals to carry out larger goals. The same way we see with the police state whenever a black man is killed, or whenever there's some kind of riot that goes off because of something silly like that. They're gauging our response time to see how we'll react. That's exactly what this is, but in a different aspect. They're using these refugees to destabilize countries, economies, all kinds of different things like that. This is the socioeconomic reformation. They have to collapse the country in order to establish this new world order, this technocracy, right? So what I'm basically trying to say is, right here, with this article alone, and you guys can actually go check it out, what they're trying to say is they're trying to tamper with our time-space orientation. I'm not trying to go down that path just yet. What I am trying to illustrate to you guys is that there are different types of technologies being used on what I would consider an advanced technology scale or a high occult technology scale, to where they're trying to use all of this different information as provided by mass surveillance, provided by the NSA, provided by big data, provided by Google, provided by all these different things. They're trying to use this to predict the population, and I'll get into that later. I'm not trying to say they're trying to break us out of our time-space orientation as if we're in some kind of matrix. That is for another show entirely. What I am trying to illustrate, though, to you guys is that when they inject refugees into us, whenever they spray us with chemtrails, whenever they shoot us up with vaccines, whenever they mess with the stock market, whenever they do all these different types of things, this is them experimenting on the population. This is them carrying out the will of a more prominent figure, of a more malevolent force, as I said before at the start of the episode, that energy that is working in the background trying to dictate the rules of engagement for this reality. And what's happening to this reality because of this robotic, this malevolent, this entity, this force, what's happening to this reality is we are systemically being dumbed down. We are being brought to a level of subservience. Like, check this out. Robot babies. Think about that, guys. Robot babies were using child robot babies to develop emotions, so that people who can have children can simulate that. That's where we're at these days. Emotionally, we have been changed, we have been altered, we have been messed up. Something has happened to us internally to where we feel so robotic, so fake, and a lot of people can feel that. You know, a lot of people actually can notice the synthetic and the unusualness of reality these days because of how wild and how basic things are. And that's awesome. That's the only reason why I'm saying all the things I do say, is because there's more to us than we think. We have just been systemically dumbed down to think that we're not important, that we're not capable, that we're not able. When really, you know, that's the world telling you that. That's this world telling you that. And we know that this world is a fake shill of the real world. Okay, so what's happening now? Artificial intelligence and automation, what's happening now whenever they implement these types of things? This is because society has been, or at least the general masses have been so indoctrinated, so brainwashed or dumbed down, however you want to look at it, whatever aspect you want to look at it. We've been so affected by this constant barrage of fake everything that we don't even know how to experience reality anymore. You see, we're creating fake everything. And I know that I'll get into that later on. You know, the idea that we're creating a fake reality, that we're living in a synthetic world. What I'm trying to illustrate now to you guys with artificial intelligence and automation is that these tasks, the things and the way that we act these days, they're so robotic and so mechanical, so industrial, that yes, a robot can do it. This is not what humanity should be doing. But now, because we've been tricked by society, we feel as though we have been let down, that we've been scapegoated, that we're about to be replaced. When this should not be the case. This is society telling you that you're going to be worthless now that these robots come in. I didn't realize that something you created was much more important than you outside of your child. However, this is not our child. These are tools. So there's all kinds of metaphysical, philosophical things that come into play when looking at automation. What I'm basically trying to tell you guys is that whenever they implement these types of things, that's because we need to change how we interact with one another, what we're doing here in this world, in this time frame. This extension, this malevolent force, they are implementing their foot soldiers, the robots, and the artificial intelligence in which they can draw upon, simply because, as I said before, we have become routine, we have become industrial, we have become robotic in our mannerisms. We don't even use words, we use emojis to communicate with one another. And if that's not a simulation of society, I don't know what is. The Intelligence Advanced Research Project activity is running several simultaneous research expeditions into how crowdsourced data could be used to predict specific events, including disease outbreaks or riots. Some analyses have surfaced unexpected connections between seemingly unrelated data and the probability of an event occurring, including that, in aggregate, canceled dinner reservations are pretty good predictors of disease outbreaks. So basically what I'm trying to illustrate here to you guys is that if these people can run pizza robots, and that's what we're able to do here in the public sector, what do you think people like our IARPA are doing and DARPA are doing? Right, they're running massive simulations on people. They're running crazy matrices on us. You see, and they're using crowdsourced data. And I actually talked about this with the Truth Sec team, where I thought it was fantastic that people were using public access information to create a library that was readily accessible. However, now this is being done in the private sector with things like DARPA and IARPA, right? What they're trying to do is they're trying to come into contact, they're trying to run algorithms, run simulations that basically predict what we're going to be doing next with about 70 to 85% accuracy, right? Think about that. Just think about that for a second. This is where I have to recall the information, or at least the kind of mindset that we had to adopt whenever we were looking at things like Jade Helm 15 and UX 16, right? The whole idea behind that is that the Jade Helm 15 was an adiabatic quantum computing software that was running massive simulations on the population. I myself actually came into contact with one of the surveillance vehicles that they used to map the surrounding information. I don't know what exactly the projections look like or what exactly the simulations look like, but I know they have amassed massive amounts of information on various types of things. HTA is what they use, human terrain analysis. This is whenever they look at things like your geography, your social media posts, your political affiliation, your daily activities. All kinds of different things give off information in this Internet of Things world that we live in these days. The common information that we have, or the crowdsourced data that these people are using to create these types of simulations, is insane. Right? The idea that they could use this type of information against us, basically using all of our characteristics against us, is exactly what I'm talking about. So whenever you take those tests, asking what your personality is, or what your aura is, or what your spirit animal is, or what your favorite anime character is, or what your favorite movie are. You know, all these different types of things. They use this to get a good personality read as to who you are and what it is that you are in society. You see. So one thing that I thought was kind of strange, and I didn't necessarily make a slide for it, but one thought that popped into my mind whenever I'm looking at this kind of simulated reality, this simulated society, the fact that they're trying to predict the population. One of the ways that I feel like we could be being gamed in a larger aspect is I constantly talk about things such as pre-crime technology, real-time crime tracking, how they're using technology that was that's basically from Minority Report, how they're using this kind of technology to do the same, to predict the population. One of the aspects I think that we're not looking at is we obviously can see that things are heating up. Gun sales are on the rise. But whenever they do things like look into your citizen threat score ranking, and how much of a threat you are to society, they look at things like your social media posts, your bank accounts, where you stay, different things like that. I also am starting to think that whenever they look at things like that, whenever we buy guns, whenever we make politically dissident statements, these also raise our threat score, our ranking in society. This is another thing that I'm sure that they implement into this, into the actual matrices that they're creating to predict the population. You see, and that's whenever you have to start thinking about a larger aspect. What does it truly mean whenever we can have these people create a synthetic society? The synthetic agenda is the overarching agenda of the New World Order worldwide conspiracy. Think about it. So many aspects of the conspiracy are about supplanting the real with the fake, the organic with the inorganic, carbon with the silicon, and the biological with the artificial. In the synthetic agenda, everything in our world is being threatened by replacement with an inferior version or a fake replica of itself, which sells itself as superior, so as to increase the acceptance and the assimilation of it. And that's where we're at in 2016, guys. We have an entire fake society being erected around us. I don't like to talk about things like this as much, but we have children. We have an entire generation that doesn't want to do anything. It feels like the world is fake simply because they don't know what's going on. They have been indoctrinated into this system. We have people who are unaware of the ways that we are being manipulated and in how many different diverse ways. And because of this, because of the idea that we don't know what's going on, the fact that we see vaccines and petrochemical drugs and radiation as medicine, foreign corporations as government, mainstream science as knowledge, and GMOs masquerading as food, and fiat paper masquerading as money, Babylonian magic, that should illustrate to you guys the types of times that we're in, the types of people that we're dealing with. You see, these are people that are trying to mimic life. They want to make life in their own image. These are people that want to play God. These are people that want to try to masquerade as if they are our masters. These are Masons. These are Freemasons. These are the Luciferians. These are the people who want you dead. These are the people that don't appreciate human life. These are the ones that are trying to supplant the carbon for the silicone, the real with the man-made. This is who we're up against. These are the people who don't want us to succeed, who don't want to break their matrix, who don't want to wake up, who don't want us to step into the greatness as to who we truly can be. This is why you're told that you're not great. This is why you're told you're only cool if you have the newest thing. This is the mind control. This is the indoctrination that we have been fed our entire lives. And that's why when people see these types of things, they know inherently this is wrong. Because we have, as I said before, a malevolent force, an outside entity trying to dictate the rules of engagement on how we perceive reality. And on top of that, we now have them trying to force us into a man-made reality that they have constructed, one that, to our eyes, seems as if it is magnificent. But if you've heard me say this before, I truly believe that Google could be the devil, the digital interpretation of that, because Satan is the great imitator. There is nothing that we can't do that is not imitated through technology. And I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that prior to all the different radiation that we were swimming in, the Wi-Fi radiation, the Bluetooth radiation, all the different microwaves and everything that we are being hit with and bombarded with on the regular. Prior to all of this, we did have supernatural abilities, paranormal abilities. The idea to have telekinesis, to send your thoughts to other people, to vibe with them. And that's not a phone call. You see, that's you connecting your essence to a larger goal, understanding deeper spiritual truths as far as the nature of humanity. However, through things like this synthetic society being given the status, air quotes, being given importance simply because we have something that was purchased and that this society tells us is great, that's that mind control. So whenever we start looking at all these types of things, looking at how we've been given the mindset of the mindset of some fake people, man, the mindset of some people who don't want the best for you, snakes, we really have to truly understand what's going on. I mean, the fact that and this is whenever you have to get into transhumanism, we're now starting to talk about ectogenesis, guys. We're talking about the times we're living in. We're talking about designer babies. We're talking about being able to do away with, I guess, doing away with what's natural, truly. I mean, like right there, the idea that we can't even have babies. However, that's all I really got for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noisera, Freedom Faction, out.